you're gonna look great. But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better. GymWits, GymWits.
That's right, man. You tell 'em.
Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And I'm Toni Marinucci, a.k.a. Tips with Toni.
And we are the GymWits. So we've got Toni on, but we'll do a little bit of nutrition discussion a little bit later today, but you have some, I guess, interesting or good news, right? For your own fitness goals.
Yes, I just signed up for my first half marathon. So I know people are like, why not the full one? Well, 13 miles of running is a lot. Especially for me. I'm not really a runner. I do like to exercise and I try to do a lot of cross training, but running is usually just a part of my workout. It might be like a mile or 2 miles. What?
That was just the sound of everyone clicking off the podcast.
Why?
Because Tony's not going to be talking about that much nutrition.
We do have some nutrition at the end, but we'll save that.
Yeah.
What made you decide to run the marathon? Or the half marathons?
Honestly, I was going for, a warm-up run, and I passed by a window where it was advertised, and it was like I could have either signed up for a 10K or the half. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really need to push myself a little bit more. I feel good physically. I keep improving. Like, I need to set the bar a little bit higher. So I was just like, I'm just going to do it. Mm-hmm. So when I went to my computer, I was like 10K half. And I was like, just do the half. Just enter. Once you enter, you'll figure out how to do it after. And so that's why I'm here. Because I don't even really, honestly, my friends have run marathons, like the full ones. Yeah. And, I know some stuff, but to be very honest, I don't know that much about training.
When is the half marathon?
It's not until the end of November, but I know how quickly time flies. Yeah. And they do say from what I can hear, is like start training as soon as possible, but like take it seriously. I think, I don't know, even I want to say like 6-8 weeks out, maybe more. Yeah. I don't know.
Depends. So how much per week do you run? Let's say previously.
Right. And right now I probably would say I probably do like an average of 5 miles a week.
5 miles in how many workouts? Like
probably like 2 to 3.
So you can do like what's a long run for you? Like what would you say? I was
like the 5 when I do the 5. Sometimes I'll do it all at one time, and then other times I'll do like maybe honestly sometimes I'll just run a mile for a warm up. Yeah. And then other times like if I'm going a little longer, I would say 3 miles is pretty much like just like when I run like to get. That's like my workout is running and I might do core work after. Yeah. It's like that's my cardio workout.
How difficult is that for you? The 3 miles or 5 miles?
So it depends on the pace I go.
Yeah.
Honestly, at a slower pace, I can go for a long time. It ends up being more mental than physical. Actually, I think most of the time it's mental, to be honest. Yeah. But then when I'm really pushing, if there's a lot of hills involved, it might take me like, I do have the Fitbit, so I do track. So there's some times where I can run 3 miles with like an 11-minute mile. Yeah. But that's when like there's hills and like there's stuff. And then there's other times where it's like, like I could do a 10-minute mile. Like, cause like I'm going on a straight path for the whole time. So it kind of depends on the trail.
Yeah. So I know you have questions for me. So I will preface this just with saying that I can help, I definitely help you with the running advice, especially as a beginner. Yeah. But for anybody who's listening who maybe is looking for, more race related, like improving their specific times, that's where you may need like a running coach who can really help you with, cutting, for some people it's about getting a very specific time or cutting your time by 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is. So in that case, as it gets more advanced, you definitely want to deal with like a coach who really has specific knowledge on that. But I can definitely help you as far as like your first time doing this and kind of getting ready for it.
Yeah, so, I don't even know what like a time would be, like where I'm going to fall. Like I've never done this before. I know, like I said, my friends who are like avid marathon runners, like for them, like finishing the New York City Marathon in like 4 hours or less is like amazing. Yeah. So like, how do I equate that to a half marathon? And for me, once again, I'm not like a runner, I would say. I'm just I love exercise.
Well, everything is very person specific. Yeah. So, it's hard, especially if you're not a big runner, to have a goal in mind. It'd be a little bit different if like you do 10Ks every once, regularly, and you kind of have a time that you do that in. And so you can kind of, transfer that, to some extent, it's like, okay, if I could do a 10K in, 40 minutes, then I want to try to do the half in, an hour or 2 hours. I don't know. I'm not doing my math right. Well, but you get that idea where you can kind of
40 minutes.
Huh? Okay. 40. Sorry. I don't know. 45, 48, an hour, whatever.
Probably like, I would
I'm
say
just-
like 45 minutes to an hour
Yeah.
for
How much is 10K?
like
How many
6
miles?
Yeah,
miles
6
or
miles.
so.
So,
Yeah.
Jeez.
so what question? So I guess shoot, and I'll try to.
Okay, well, first of all, when do I mean, I'm going to start training, but like, when do I really start like seriously creating a plan and trying to get my mileage in every week?
So I mean, honestly, as soon as possible
Okay,
is
that's what
definitely the
I've
right advice. You definitely heard that right. I think
Yeah.
the thing with running, especially if you're a non-runner,
Yeah.
is it's there's a lot of wear and tear, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of volume of work, a high volume of work that's repetitive movement,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's not only about building your cardio, but it's also building the muscle endurance. It's
Right.
also building the mental capacity for it. Like for some people, it's boring. So like,
Yeah.
you got to you're training yourself mentally and physically to handle that long run. So I would definitely say that you should begin now. Really, also just physically, so that the more time you have to build up to it, the better it's going to be. Versus like if you're like, I'm going to run a half marathon, and you're like 5 weeks out.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a challenge,
Right.
especially if you're not a big runner.
Right.
So I definitely start like.
So
next
then
week.
I guess my other question is, because there's been times where I do start getting on like a running kick,
Yeah.
and like that becomes my workout more so. But I usually, what ends up happening is my back starts to hurt, or I do get some sort of injury that makes
Yeah.
me have to slow down. So what exercises should I be doing to prevent that?
So that's a very good question. It's a little hard to answer, only because again it becomes very person specific. So some of that has to deal with watching you run, and like even I have a good friend who's a physical therapist and a runner himself, and he actually had me and was showing me some really interesting stuff about my own kind of imbalances and my own running issues. And so, where I may have certain issues with my gait and my movement and my running, it may be different for you. So how
Right.
I'm going to prehab and train and kind of protect my body is gonna be a little bit different from you, depending on what your own kind of compensations and imbalances are. It is important that you do work on you do warm up properly. So that's really really is important that you're warmed up, that you don't you do like a warm up mile if you have to as you're doing your training runs. It's important that you stretch be after that, you're properly hydrated. So there are definitely things as far as like stretching, movement, warming up, cooling down, that you want to make sure you're taking care of. If you feel if your body feels tired, then you may need to give yourself an extra day. You don't have to go 6 days a week.
Right.
And if you're feeling beat up or banged up, it's better to take that day off, because especially as someone who's not a runner, injuries are gonna you need to kind of protect your body and make sure that you're
Right.
not doing too much, because kind of overtraining is a real risk for somebody who's not used to it. Where if like my friend who's a runner, he can go from not running and then he can go start, do 20 miles a week without much of a problem, because his body's kind of used to it, where you don't have the same kind of muscle memory. So
Right, I have
it'll
to
take a
build that
while
up.
to build that up. And also, if there are, it might be good to watch you run to see, okay, here are some of the issues that I'm seeing, but it's a little hard to say specifically, like do this stretch and that exercise, in order to, because I just don't see it. I would say, like, if like your back's hurting, then it could have to do with some core strength or lower back endurance. Like that's the other part of the pain. Is pain could be that there's some kind of imbalance, but it could also just be that overtraining. Like you're just, it's an overuse thing, and the entire body's involved when you're running. So there's it's hard. Sorry, it's such a vague answer,
No,
but
no.
if you're warmed up and you're stretching, that'll go a long way towards kind of preparing you for the marathon.
I guess that's a good point, because honestly, I do when I'm doing another workout, I run as my warm up. I
Okay.
never think about warming up for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
run,
yeah, no.
because I'm running.
Yeah, I know, it's
So,
part
but
of it.
that's actually something that I should probably do.
Yeah,
You're right, and
like-
then stretch in the middle, and then also at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say stretch in the middle
No?
of the run. If you're working, I would say if you have any specific joint, muscle like tightness, you might want to stretch before. But more dynamic stretching is best for the beginning. So you're doing stretches that are more movement oriented. So you're not kind of static stretching. So kind of dynamic stretches and a warm up. Then go into your run. And actually, what I can do is I'll post on the app. In the notes for this episode, I'll post some kind of good dynamic stretches to do, so that you'll have it, and then anyone who's listening will have those too. So things that are good. So dynamic stretching is definitely good, and then warm up, whether it's a half mile or a mile, kind of whatever it takes for you to get warmed up. Then you kind of go at the pace that you're going to want to go at. And then, stretch and make sure that you really do stretch and kind of, take care of that after your run. So it's an all encompassing. Yeah, we think running is just, get up, run, done, but there's a lot involved in it.
Yeah. Well, like in high school, I was on the track and field team, but I did all the field events. I didn't run.
Yeah.
So, but I remember though watching, I would warm up with them, but then and stretch, and then I would do my own, like, I threw shot put and discus and all that stuff. And then I went into the weight room with the football team. I was the only girl in my high school to throw shot put at first, and then I started a trend.
Yeah. So I'm actually wondering something. So we know that if you're training for a marathon, running is got to be what you do.
Yeah.
But are there any other exercises that might help with that, like maybe muscle endurance for the legs, weights of some sort?
Yeah, no, it's definitely important to cross train. I think for everybody's a little bit different. How their bodies are made up are going to be slightly different. So some people may need additional weight training. Some people may need really more focused on their flexibility. Some others agility. Although agility is not super necessary for running, but also depends on the terrain. If you're running somewhere that's hilly, you're really going to need to focus on the muscle endurance and strength in the legs. Versus if you're running more of a flat terrain, that's not as important. But definitely strength training. Your normal standard resistance training is a good way to cross train. Cycling can be good. If you find you're fatiguing, like the legs fatigue early, then I find that cycling, if done right, can help with some of the lower body endurance and strength. Again, you have to be a little careful of not reinforcing certain kind of compensation. So you really want to make sure that your kind of cycling form is right. But you could absolutely cross train with like I said, with weight training. The other thing is within your running is that you can do different styles of runs. So you have your obviously the half marathon is pretty standard. You're going to try to get up to a certain pace and keep that pace as long as you can, and it's just get from point A to point B as fast as possible. That's pretty standard. But when you're running, you can there are different approaches. Like you might have your long run every week. So again, this gets more specific as you're getting a little bit more competitive. But even if you're not, it's you can't do, let's say if you're running 13, the half marathon's about 13 miles, like you can't do 13 miles every day. So you may have your day where you're doing your long run. So obviously right now, maybe, you probably can't go out and do 13 easy right now. So you may be at like 6 might be your long run, and then you build to 7 and build to 8. But then in between that, you're going to have, you have kind of maintenance runs. So you may have, let's say if you're doing 4 days a week, you may have your one long run, and then you may have a couple maintenance runs. So those maintenance runs could be, depending on the distance that your end goal is, they may be up, they may be 40, 50, 60% of what what your long run is. So you have your maintenance runs that are long, and then you also have what are called like tempo runs. So those are where you're kind of pushing like the again the like lactate threshold. So where you're you kind of
trying to get the
forgetting about the whole lactic acid thing. Forgetting that there are different types of tempo runs. So some are going to be, shorter intervals, some are longer intervals, but the idea is to kind of push your heart rate up higher. So you're getting your heart rate up, let's say for your normal run, you're going to be in the 80 to 85% range. Like for your tempo runs, you're going to be anywhere from like, 85, 90, 95 percent of your maximum heart rate. So but again, there are different types of tempo runs. So again, you have some intervals. You have some where it'll be like you're going to go, 5 minutes fast, 5 minutes slow, 5 minutes fast, 5 minutes slow. You have some where you're going to do a mile, 1 mile fast, 1 mile, off. So again, there are lots of different ways to kind of play with it, but the idea is that you're pushing your own kind of VO2 max, and you're pushing your own capacity more than the standard marathon, the half marathon or marathon would be, which is more I got to keep a certain pace for an extended period of time. So in a typical, if you're doing a running program, you may have it's kind of standard would be like a tempo run, a long run, and then a couple of maintenance days where you're just you just get out there on the road and you're just running.
And then do you do the cross training days on the maintenance days?
That varies. I would say if I was training it really depends. Like for you exercise, so you're not somebody who's like starting from scratch. So I would probably say, you need a couple of rest days. I always like having 2 full rest days.
Yeah.
So that means you have 4 days and maybe do your cross training. You have 1 day where you could just do all your cross training and no running, and then 1 or 2 other days where you're doing your weight training in addition to the run.
Right.
And you can split it up how you want. For some, they do 2 a day. So for some people, it'd be easier to do, morning run, evening weights. Some you do it all in one workout.
Right.
But you can play with that too. So you may feel that you're just burnt out doing the cross training, then maybe do the cross training on another day, or don't do as much. So again, it becomes a little bit person specific, and there's no set like this is how you have to do it, especially for your first half marathon. It's really more about finding what's comfortable for you and what works with your schedule and what keeps you consistent, more than it is like you have to do X amount of days and X amount of workouts. It's really about like what's comfortable, but you're trying to incorporate the additional training in.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So, I'm actually wondering something, and I can ask you this, even though it's about your own marathon. What is your diet going to be consisting of?
Yeah, so that's honestly something else I have to. I mean, I know basically it's not going to change much because I have already, adopted very healthy eating habits. But it's definitely going to be a little bit higher in carbohydrates once I start training.
We're going to have to have more calories?
Most likely. I mean, then again, I wouldn't mind losing some weight as the registered dietitian, but I'm hoping it naturally just happens. I don't really count calories. I really do just try and eat healthy. But I am going to probably monitor, how much I take. And, if you overeat, you can't go for a run, right? Like, you're just not going to feel like it. So, but I want to do another episode about specific, like, nutrition for running. Because we did, like, a general one of nutrition just for exercise.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I know a little bit about everything. I've never really like fully researched, marathon nutrition and running. So I am going to definitely look into that.
Yeah. And so do you have a goal yet for your pace? Or I guess you're saying you're not quite sure.
Right now, I don't even really know what my average is. Honestly, I was going to start training earlier when everyone was like, just start now. Yeah. But I got sick. I was on vacation and then I got sick. So I literally, today's like the first day I feel like I would say 90%.
Okay,
like I'm still not completely feeling good, but it's gorgeous out. So I'm thinking about going for like a baby run after this. But I'm definitely going to officially start tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, so once I get started, I would say anyway, my pace like right now is anything depending on, like I said, the terrain, like anywhere from like 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
So, I don't even know what that's going to equivalent to. I think, but then also too, I've run, if you just put me on a treadmill for doing a mile, I could do that in like 8 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you want to keep your training outdoors, basically.
Yeah, because it's like, it doesn't, it's not the same when you have like weather and hills and it's not like just a mile. It's 3 or 4 miles. So then your pace starts to slow down. So I don't really know.
And for now, I would be more focused on getting the mileage up than the pace. Because again, you're doing something completely new. You have no idea how, what your time's going to be. And sometimes focusing on the time may be discouraging, because if you're not getting the times you're aiming for, it can anytime you're not reaching specific goals. So I would focus a little bit more on the mileage right now, and then you have a record to beat. So if you find you really enjoy it, then okay, if you do it in an average 12-minute mile, then you have something to aim for next time. So I think that's the big challenge is like Do
you have anyone you can train with?
Sort of, not really, to be honest. But they have a group like as it gets closer, I signed up for training with the people that are also doing the half marathon. Yeah. So as it gets closer, I will have that. Up until then, most of my family lives like in a different area, so or friends for that matter. So I could maybe look up a group on like Facebook or something.
I would definitely say if there's a running group training for that's huge. And that was actually like the one really important bit of advice is to find a running group or a group related to it.
Because when I run with other people, oh my God, I surprise myself every single time. Yeah, it's easier.
And they'll know they've done it before. They probably know that route. And so it'll be a lot easier to go, they'll be able to give you really specific advice for that race that'll help. And they have the experience, they have the experience doing that. So, there are just details you'll get from people who've been doing it for a long time and it's motivating. You're with other people who are doing the same thing, and it's easier to keep those runs. Like that's the hardest thing for me is just boredom. And like even now when I run with friends, like I've been like I don't run all that much anymore. I used to run more, but with my own trip to Thailand coming up and the way that you train in Thailand, there's a lot of running involved. I've had to build up my own miles. And when I've run with friends, it's far easier than running by myself. It's just the boredom takes over for me when it comes to running. So
I gotta get like a good playlist or something.
Yeah, I have one album I can listen to when I run for distance. If I do anything more than like 5 miles,
the GymWits playlist.
If I do anything more, listen to our song on a loop. That would drive me crazy. But no, like that's the only way I can get like last more than like 4 miles. I think is my max, and then I have there's one album I can listen to, and that's it. But yeah, like definitely join the group, and that'll help. That'll help a lot.
That's a good idea.
Have you Ryan? I guess mentioned this. Have you worked with someone on technique? If you've even considered that, because that might pay some dividends.
I've considered reaching out. I still have a close relationship with my track and field coach from high school. We're actually doing like an alumni get together in a couple of weeks. So when I go to the barbecue, they're going to be all runners because most of the people that stay in contact with him were runners. And then my coach. So I don't know if he can like look at my form, but he could probably give me pointers about form. And I'm sure there's that I can probably improve on. I already like just walking with friends, even though I'm taller than most of my friends, they always tell me that I have a small stride. Like I walk so much slower than them. I don't know. So like, I think honestly, I definitely take a lot more steps than probably necessary when I run.
Well, there's different schools of thought on that. Like when it comes to stride, you've got your stride length and the frequency. So it's really just it's a balance between this length and the frequency. If you turn your feet over more, as long as you're doing it fast, it doesn't matter so much that you're not getting the length of the stride. So I mean, there's a right balance, right? Like you can imagine somebody taking a ridiculously long stride and how that would hinder their speed. So versus like somebody taking a really short stride. So it's just a matter of like, are you getting your legs over as fast as you can, and what's the right balance between the speed of the movement and the length of your stride to make that work. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But it's more what's comfortable for you running right now, more than like trying to lengthen your stride. That may be more harm than good right now, because then then you're trying to learn a new way to run, and if you're learning a new way to run, that's gonna take a lot more energy, a lot more effort, and a lot more time to develop right now. Right. Especially with November's close.
It is, honestly, because it's about to be August, and that's pretty much I think when you're supposed to do 4 months out, right?
Yeah,
so
ideally
we gotta check in about 2 months.
Yeah, check. Well, that in 2 months we'll do a nutrition episode about it. We can talk about my training, and because that's also too like as longer runs you do have to replenish, and I know a lot of people experience depending on the person, like certain foods will bother their stomach while they when they're running. They're supposed to eat to refuel, but like what do you choose? So like even that's something I have to test with. Yeah. Because even though I'm not a runner, I want to take this as seriously as possible. I believe everything's like a learning advice. Like
honey always worked for me. Yeah, I would just get packs of honey from like Starbucks or wherever, and then just keep them with me. And then if I needed extra energy, I just take a shot of honey, and that seemed to work.
Except how sticky is that?
Well, no, it's just regular like a packet. So you just like rip open the packet, like take a shot of it.
I feel like my hands would be like soaked in honey.
You'll have plenty of sweat to wash the stickiness away.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I know a lot of people do like gummy bears and
they sell like the gel packs with like
I don't know. I feel like just thinking of gel packs makes me want to vomit. I'm sorry.
Just do the honey. It works.
It might be fine. I'll try it out, but sometimes like texture, consistency, I don't know if I can do that, but we'll see.
So do you have any other questions for now, or?
I think that's it. I think maybe once I start training, I'll
so maybe the 2 month we'll follow up with diet, and then we'll do some.
Last question, because I do need new sneakers.
Okay.
Do I get running sneakers? And do them wear separate sneakers for when I'm cross training versus? When I'm running?
If you want, I would say yes, only because sneakers wear, and especially for runners. Like if you're running, you should probably be changing your sneakers every couple months. If not more.
I noticed that because especially if you just exercise often. Like for me, it's like it's almost like I got a new pair in for Christmas, and
Yeah.
I really need a new pair.
Yeah, so if you use your pair just for running, that's ideal just because you can save your sneakers. You know, like
Yeah.
that's a key. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of schools of thought on like what kind of footwear to work. You've got the barefoot people, the
No, I'm not
Vibrams. You know, just get a decent pair of running
Yeah.
sneakers, something that supports you, but it's not too, you know, nothing too much support, nothing, you know, just, you know, there's all kind of crazy science on that, and you don't have to just get some decent sneakers.
All right, cool.
Alrighty, so we have an Ask the Dietitian. Is this our first Ask the Dietitian?
I think we had one before.
We did, that's right.
If I'm not mistaken. So, all right. So this one is from Jennifer, and it says, "Hi Tony, I love what you bring to the podcast, and you've helped me to make some important changes to my diet. I hear conflicting things about dairy. Some people say it's good, some people say it's bad. What are your thoughts?"
Well, first of all, thank you for listening, and that makes me really happy. So I'm happy that she's making changes to her lifestyle and that what we're doing is influencing our listeners. So awesome.
I think it's generally good because you can sort of get your thoughts out, you know, every day. You know, you write a little something in it, and it's sort of like a good way to express yourself and, you know, sort of feel better at the day. It's like you might be able to revisit it.
That was your joke.
Our diary.
God.
I get it.
Oh, wait. Oh, dairy. Oh, I see. I see.
I was expecting better. Sorry, that's a C+. All right. So anyway, to the question.
Okay, so first thing I think you probably have recognized by listening to the podcast with me on is there's really no good or bad food, right? We want to incorporate all different food groups, trying to get a variety of nutrients because each food group plays a different role for our bodies. So dairy is one of those things that can be very nutritious, but it depends what the goal is, right? So if you're trying to lower your cholesterol or lose weight, then you want to choose low-fat or part-skim dairy products. So when you're talking about milk, you would do like a low-fat or skim milk, part-skim cheese or low-fat cheese, and then even things like cottage cheese. You want to do maybe a low-fat. But if say you have high blood pressure, cottage cheese and cheese tends to be very high in sodium. So you'd want to.
It's very high. That's like one of those hidden. Salt mines.
And but that's why it's great for athletes. I know we've talked about that before, right? Like having milk after a workout is a great carb to protein ratio, but also the sodium that you lose, the electrolytes. So someone with high blood pressure might want to take a look at the sodium content, especially something like cottage cheese. When I get cottage cheese, I do the no salt added. And also portion is always a factor, right? Especially something like cheese, 1 ounce of cheese, if it's not a low fat or a part skim, can be equivalent to about 100 to 110 calories. And 1 ounce is like, if it's like a stick, it's kind of like the size of your pointer finger, or like a pair of dice, or maybe 3 die, you know. So it's not that much, right? So it's very concentrated, which is why dietitians usually recommend like a lower fat, just because then you'll get less calories that way. There's that argument that they should do. There's new studies showing that it's not the fat. It's depending on the source, where it comes from. Still ongoing science needs to be done, but really it's up to that person. So if they have a full fat yogurt, for example, will be closer to 200 calories for like a 6 ounce portion, versus a low fat or fat free will be closer to like 80 calories or 100. You know, it depending on the portion size. But so the question is that person going to feel satisfied on the low fat or non-fat for 80 to 100 calories, or they're going to want 2 of them and they may as well just have that one full fat one to get that satisfaction, because really, you know, it is portion control that is important. I know we're going to definitely like do a whole other episode. I know we spoke about doing like an episode about carbohydrates. We did a protein episode, doing one about fat. We could definitely do one about dairy, because then there's people that are lactose intolerant or have a dairy allergy. So it tends to get pretty, you know, we can go like on and on and on and do a whole other episode about it.
So I guess it's not inherently bad, because I do hear a lot of people and like their immediate thing is, I'm gonna start eating better. I'm cutting out dairy and I'm cutting out caffeine. I'm like, oh, are either of those that bad? You know, and those tend to be like you hear that a lot, like when people want to refer to things that are bad that are in our diets, but there's nothing inherently wrong unless you're lactose intolerant, right?
Right.
Like there's nothing inherently wrong with
no, but people are probably just eating too much of it.
Too much of it.
Yeah.
And some people, well, there's a lot of sort of some a lot of conspiracy theories out there as well. People think that the dairy that we're getting is pumped full of hormones. Okay, so in that way, it's bad.
Yeah, but aside from that, I'm just thinking like I've heard arguments that humans are the only ones that drink the milk of another animal. It's like, well, sure, but is there anything inherently wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with that? Yeah, we're the only animals that build skyscrapers too. Is there anything really wrong with that?
I'm going to ask you guys, do you think, well, we don't know that, not if aliens came down and built the pyramids. So we don't know. we don't know about that. But,
welcome to this GymWits conspiracy cast.
When I went off of dairy, now remember I was also off of sugar, I felt a little more sort of energized.
So was it the dairy or was it the sugar?
Maybe it was both. Like I personally love dairy, and when I have less of it, I tend to have more energy and my digestion's a little bit better. That might just be me. I don't know what you guys.
And that just might be that you're having too much. Like I find the same thing. My digestion does seem to be better when I don't have as much dairy, but I don't feel necessarily, physically that much. I just think I probably have a little too much dairy.
And also depends on the source, right? Something like yogurt has great source of probiotics that we've spoken about before. Dairy there's a lot of items in the dairy department. So I definitely don't want to dismiss this question completely, but I do really feel like we could do a much better job.
So we'll do that
if we did a full episode, because then we can talk about the thought process between the hormones behind it. We can talk about the fat versus low fat. We can talk about portion. We can talk about sources. We can talk about how much is too much, intolerances. I mean, we could really we can do a full episode on it. So I don't want to get into too much now. If she wants to write back after listening to this episode about what specifically she even means by that, because good or bad, what did she hear? Some people avoid it because it causes acne. So what do you mean by good or bad?
Good or bad
what's your ultimate goal? Right?
Don't forget, some people who are saying it's bad may be soy milk or almond milk producers, so it's in their best interest for you not to drink dairy and to
buy the milk,
consume another product. So just always take into consideration what is the agenda of the person saying that.
Right, like where did you get that resource from? Where did you read that?
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Cool. Well, definitely we'll revisit this, and if Jennifer has any other questions, definitely send us in.
Thank you for writing in. We really appreciate it.
I guess that's it. So as usual, all our stuff can be found at thegymwits.com. Toni, where can people find you and any information on you?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. It's Toni with an I.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, that's it. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And I'm Toni Marinici, a.k.a. Tips with Toni.
And we are
the GymWits.